well, everybody here knows me, but as Anastasia was doing the other day, a proper presentation starts with the introduction of the speakers. So I am Javier, and I have been doing the PhD here for the last 3 years. And I also have been teaching this lecture, where I think all of you have been taking one or another year. And I think that in the university, they teach us very well how to be engineers and how to create and solve problems. But when we have to explain those problems to other people, we find difficulties. Like in my experience, when I started the PhD, it was very difficult at the beginning when I had to write a paper, or when I have to do a presentation, or when I have to apply for grants. It was very difficult to explain those ideas in a simple way, or explain those ideas to other colleagues that they can understand what I am doing. So I'm not really an expert on communication, but I think that the last weeks, when I have been seeing you doing these presentations, I could see that you have been doing the same mistakes I was doing at the beginning. So I think I can here summarize some of my personal experience, and I guess you can learn something. Or at least I want you to make you think about these presentations skills. Okay, so the first tip for a presentation is, if you are doing a short presentation, it's not necessary, but if you are doing a long presentation, it's always good to start with what is going to be the plan of that lecture or of that presentation. So I will start telling you first, like framing the lecture, telling you the background and telling you what is my idea about communication. And then we will see that idea of communication applied for the presentations. And I have been organizing that in this way to make a bit of sense of all these ideas that they might be overlapping. And then we will take a short break, and I will explain the task that you have to do for Wednesday. Okay, so before starting, I want to ask you a question. You don't have to answer, but just think about that. Like, if you could have a superpower, like which superpower would you like to have? Just, you don't have to answer. It's very early in the morning, but just think about that. And I don't know, like some of you would like to have like telepathy or mind control. No, you choose something better. It will make sense later. Okay, the thing is, like, if some of you were thinking about telepathy, like you can like send your ideas or control other people's minds. So that's basically communication. In communication, we have an idea in our brain. We have these connections building this idea in our neurons, in our brain. And with communication, we can take that idea and put that into another brain. We can create the same connections in another person. And that new person, with these connections, they can see the world in a different way. So that would be communication. And the difference with telepathy, where everything works like perfectly and wirelessly, in communication, in the real life, we will see that to do that is not so easy. We have to do it in a more complex way, and that's going to produce a lot of problems that we have to solve. So first we have, if I have my idea that I want to send to you, I have to convert that into some physical changes around us, voice, movement, anything. You will see those, and you will start to build like these same connections in your brain. And usually, if it's one-to-one, you will be asking me about more information. You don't have it clear, and I will send you this information, and so on, until we have the same idea in our brains. So because you are nerds, I have summarized that with some like code. That's the idea. So you would be in this loop of sending and listening until you have the same idea in both. And the basic idea, as I was saying, is that communication, for my point of view, is like telepathy. It's something incredible that you can really build an idea in your brain and send it to another brain. but it's really, really bad design. It's not like telepathy like in the movies. It's really, really bad design, and those problems in this design is what we have to try to solve when we communicate with others. Okay, so we will be speaking as the general idea about communication, and we will be focusing on how we do this communication in a presentation. So we will see that in this case, we are going to have some advantages and disadvantages. So one of the disadvantages is, especially for us in engineering, is that we have to communicate a more complex idea. Okay, we have this, compared with before, we have represented here this more complex idea built of other small ideas. Also in a presentation, you have to talk. It's not as easy as talking one-to-one. You have to talk to more people, a bigger audience. So then, because of that, most of the communication is going to be in one direction. It's going to be from you to the rest of the people, and you have little feedback to correct that communication. Just looking at the people or maybe asking some questions from time to time. And as well, we have some time limitations to accomplish this communication. And then, but it's not only disadvantages, we also have some advantages. That is, as we will see in the next slides, we have many more tools to send information. We have time before doing the presentation. We have some time to plan this communication. And we know what is the audience, and that's something very important, and I will emphasize this later. Or we at least, we should know what is the audience. We should know who are we gonna be talking to, and we should know what do they have in their brain before we start talking, so we can know what we have to explain, why we don't have to explain, why we have to emphasize, what we have to change. Okay, so now I will quickly go into these parts and emphasize the things that I think that are important. So first of all, for the medium, it would be the communication tools that we use to send this information. So what is the first thing that is coming to your mind? If I ask you, what is the first thing that we use to send information? Speaking, yes. So that's what the most basic one would be, like using words to send that information. But when we speak, we are not only sending the words, we are also modulating and sending some emotions with our tone of voice. And you are also send a lot of information with your body, okay? Especially, I'm Spanish, so I have to move a lot. And I wanted to do like a small experiment here, a small game, to prove and show you like this idea and to show you how important is the body language. So imagine if I tell you, like if I just use words and I tell you, I love you, you're not going to feel anything. Well, you're laughing because you didn't expect this. But compare that with somebody tells you, I love you. You know, they put like some emphasis in those words. You're adding much more information to the communication. And now imagine I'm in front of you and I will tell you, I love you. So you will be even feeling more that communication. Probably now you are even feeling more embarrassed for me just looking at me doing these stupid things. So that's anyway proving my point, that the body language is sending much more and producing more emotions on your audience. Okay, so all those things are pretty obvious. I just wanted to emphasize them. But something that sometimes we don't realize how important is that is the silence. Okay, so when you are talking, you can also use silence to separate ideas, or you can use silence to gain attention. For example, if I'm here talking and you are doing things and suddenly I shut up, like people, you see, that's what happened. Like Anastasia was looking at the phone, and now I sat up, and she just was checking out what's going on. So it's also a way of communication, using silence. Thanks for the example. And especially when we are doing a presentation, we have the help of other tools like slides. And I want to say with these slides, I want to emphasize as well that when we use slides, they are here to help the communication. But you could perfectly, and before, I don't know, when I was in university, we didn't have this. Everything was talking. So it's not necessary for a lecture or for a presentation to have slides. You could do it speaking. So you should use the slides to improve the communication, not to leave the slides talking to you. Like, I think many people at the beginning, what they do is they put all the information on the slides and they try to hide behind them like, okay, here is all the text, just read it, don't look at me, I'm afraid. But you should take that in mind, that people should be looking at you when you speak, and you have here that just with some points, some notes that they can remember, or some points that you want to show, or pictures you want to show, so you have to draw them again. So in these slides, you can include a lot of pictures, or you can include animations and videos, so it's very helpful to have these slices. But if you are using something I will emphasize also later, is when we are doing a presentation and you put here a new slides, you should realize that, okay, for me this slide is pretty obvious what is there because I have been doing that. But for you, it's the first time in your life that you are seeing this. So when you are making a presentation, you should take that into mind. If you put now here a new picture, you should be sure that the person, if the audience don't know, it's the first time that they see this picture, if it's not self-explanatory, if it's not something very obvious, you should explain a little bit what they're seeing, okay? It happened to us the other day when you were putting this picture with a lot of needles, and if you don't explain that, people can have a different idea that you are having. And, well, in a lecture, not that much in a presentation, but in a lecture you also can use the whiteboard to explain more things into detail. Okay, so those are all these tools we have to send this information. So now I will focus quickly in what we want to send. And I think something really important when you are doing a presentation or a lecture, something that is going to make your life easier is just focus in one idea. So you need to have clear what you want to send. Just get one idea, think what you want the audience to remember after your lecture. And then when you have that idea clear, I have represented here with this, you have this big idea that is made of small ideas, but the audience will have and will remember this idea, and then they can identify the smaller ideas later. But it's much easier to plan if you have a big idea, and it's much easier to remember if you have a big idea than if you start to, they send different ideas to the audience and they start to get confused. So as an example, what I'm trying to do in this lecture, my very big idea was trying to tell you, like, okay, communication is like very bad telepathy. So at the same time, I'm telling you that it's like telepathy is something so awesome, but it's very bad design. And when you remember this sentence later, you will be wondering yourself, okay, why is it bad design? What are the problems? And that's what I would like you to remember, okay? So second, I think the most important part of the presentation is going to be the audience. And also, something you should do when you are doing the presentation is to ask yourself the question, who are you doing the presentation for? And I mean with this, like, are you doing this presentation for yourself? So you go there and you show off how much you know, and you show how complicated is your work and how many complicated words you know, and people don't understand anything, but they think that you are super clever? Or you are doing this presentation so your audience, they understand your complex idea. Okay? I think it's pretty obvious that it's the second option. You have the audience, and your task as a speaker or your task as a presenter is to make sure that everybody there understands this idea. So you have to take into mind who are you going to be talking to since the beginning. Everything you plan in your presentation, it has to be conditioned, and it has to be framed by the audience that you are going to have. And a very easy example is if you have the same idea, I think you have to explain this idea to your colleagues, how are you going to do it? Or you have to explain this idea to your grandma. If I have to explain what I'm doing here to you, I will say, in my PhD, I'm using impedance spectromography to measure babies overnight and using signal processing. But if my grandma is asking me, what are you doing in Finland? Then I had to tell her, okay, we are measuring babies and detecting they have asthma so we can save them. And then she understands what I'm trying to say. Okay, so once we know we are going to be talking to and what is the idea we want to send, to make it this easier, we can, as I was saying, like break it into pieces. And our task is to design how to break this into small pieces, and we can send these pieces to our audience. And when they have cleared those pieces, we can tell them how to build them inside their brain. So you should know you can imagine it's very tricky, and I think it's very difficult when you are planning your lecture to do this, because you cannot tell somebody to build something if they are missing one of the pieces. So it's very difficult to know what you have to send before you tell them how to connect that. And also, it's very difficult. You have to always question yourself if that piece that you are trying to explain, it is really worth it the time. Right? Is it very important to make the audience, spend time with the audience trying to explain some piece, or really I can explain my big idea without that? And I think we could see that the other day with Antonio, for example, that he wanted to explain many things, but we were seeing that those things were not really essentials to understand the big idea. Okay, and I think you can learn this very well of how to communicate an idea and how to build it, explain the idea into pieces and the order of the pieces. You can learn that very well from movies. Like they are doing that perfectly. They know how to, when they build a story, they know how to build all the scenes, and all the scenes that they put in the movie, they have a meaning and a continuity to explain something is going to happen in the end. Okay, so every time you watch a movie or you watch a TV show, just think or be aware about this. Unless you are watching Pulp Fiction or Memento, that then probably you watch Pulp Fiction or Memento, you have to watch it again a second time because their idea is not clear. Well, they do it on purpose as an artistic concept, but you can compare that. Probably you have to watch again something that is not very well organized, but when you watch some blockbuster, something is clear. Since something is clear and you can identify these blocks. Okay, so a very easy way, as I was explaining to you, I think the other day, like really easy way to do this sequential sending and organizing of ideas, it could be like, okay, we have a problem, I tell you the solution. This solution is bringing a new problem, I tell you the solution to that. Okay, for example, in our case, I have a problem. I need to count the seizures. Solution, I'm going to measure the internal electroencephalogram. What is the problem with that? The new problem is that I need to know where to place the needle. Okay, my answer to that is this. This is going to bring me new problems, and so on, so on. Okay? So when you explain that in this sequential way, it makes a very natural way for the audience to understand that. Okay, so now you know your audience, You have planned how to send, you have decided what is your big idea, you have planned how to break this into pieces. So now we want to send one of these ideas. But before doing that, I wanted to do an experiment. So now you can use your paper. And I want to show you something. I want to you take this paper. You can take this. And let's do this simple experiment. Just draw in your paper, draw a tree. And don't show that to anybody else. Just draw a tree. A tree. Pool. Tree. Yes. Yeah? Well, you can put more details. Okay, so why I'm asking you to do this is like now I would like you to show like this tree that you have drawn. Just show it to the rest of your colleagues or the rest of the students. So you can see you can see, she has made this haiku. You can see that, I was expecting somebody to draw this, like, other different tree to make it I was expecting Finnish to do this because trees looks more like this in Finland. But anyway, the idea of this little game is that you can see how a simple idea that is a tree, like the way of seeing that from the different person for a simple idea, it can be like completely different. So if it's something like a tree, that is something really simple for everyone, we have such a different ideas between all of us. Imagine other more complex ideas, how they can be different. So when you are trying to explain a simple idea, we have to do something to be sure that this audience are having the same understanding of our idea that we have. Because if they don't have the same idea that we have, then they are going to understand things in a different way. So some things you can do to make sure that that is happening is like you can repeat in your presentation or your lecture. You should not be afraid of repeating things, because like repeating is like key of learning, and also with repetition, you explain again what is your point of view of this particular idea. And what is even better than repetition is if you repeat the same thing, but you rephrase that in a different way. So I explain the same thing, and in the same way that we have different ideas about different visions about ideas, we also have we have different ways of understanding the world. Some people understand things better with pictures. Some people understand them better with sounds or with words. And this rephrasing of an idea was what I was trying to do when I was making this joke in the first slides. I was trying to tell you communication is this picture, communication is this sentence, communication is this code. I was trying to do that. I was making that just for a joke as an example. So here, to explain the same idea, I'm using different ways of doing that. I'm explaining that with words, I'm explaining that with a diagram, I'm explaining that with a code, I'm explaining that with a sentence. So when you are doing a lecture, it's really good to do that, so you make sure this idea gets understood by everybody. Okay, and also something that is more like an art is when you are sending an idea, also especially if it's a complex idea, it's very helpful to start from the small and general and simple idea and start to repeat that and build a more complex and concrete idea, explanation of this idea. Okay? For example, we were doing that with some of you when you came to the lab, and I had to explain what is impedance pneumatography. I was not telling you, like, impedance pneumatography is the microscopical changes in the alveola. They are changing the density of the lungs when that makes, it's really, really hard to suddenly get this complex idea into your brain. I think it's better to break it and go slowly build this big idea. So I would explain you, impedance pneumatography is used to measure respiration. So you already know what I'm talking about. Now that you know that respiration, I will tell you, we measure the change in conductivity in the lungs. This conductivity in the lungs is because when you put air inside, it increases. Okay? You can get the idea. Okay, and something, I have many, because one of my hobbies I have is like magic and hypnosis, so I'm a bit nerd into psychology, and I have many videos to explain some psychological things that they are useful for communication. But I think if we spend some time watching a video, I think it's really good if you look at this like psychological idea. So I think it's better if we show the video and we talk about that. Okay. Here. Well, I can just tell you that the video is how we develop this ability of knowing that other people is thinking different things that we think. Okay, so this separation between minds, that is called the theory of mind. But they will explain it better. Let me see.
You're gonna have a tea party with Play-Doh. I want to serve myself. Here, Sarah. No!
Well, you've probably discovered that however smart your 3-year-old is, she doesn't seem able to put herself in someone else's mental shoes, to imagine how they think and what they believe. Perhaps you thought your parenting skills were to blame, but scientists suggest that understanding other minds is a skill that may not be fully developed until a child is about 4. To learn how children's social skills evolve between about 3 and 4, researchers use something called a false belief test. What do you think's in this box? Looks fairly obvious, doesn't it? Crayons. But let me show you. I filled it full of candles. All right, now I close it up again. While you and I have been having this conversation, Snoopy has been down here asleep. Doesn't know what we've talked about. But let's bring him into the conversation. Now I have another question for you. What do you think Snoopy will say if I ask him what's in this box? Crayons, obviously. What else could anybody possibly say? Well, watch this 3-year-old.
What do you think is inside this box? Okay, let's open it up and see.
Candles.
Now, you can ask the child what appears to be a very simple question about that. What did you think was inside the box when you first saw it? They say, oh, I always thought that there were candles in this box. Then you can ask them about someone else. So you can ask them about Snoopy. Snoopy's been sitting here. He hasn't seen this box. He's never seen us open it up. What does Snoopy think is inside this box?
Candles.
Children say the same thing. Snoopy will think there are candles inside of this box. And what that indicates is that the children's view of how minds work is very, very different from the view that you and I would have. Yes. Did you see it?
In the mind of the 3-year-old, everyone sees the world much the same way. There's no difference between what I think and believe and what everyone else, including Snoopy, thinks and believes. It is, in a sense, a naive and innocent view of the world, a kind of mental Eden. And then, about 4, comes the fall from grace.
Now, if you take a 4-year-old, quite typically the 4-year-old will tell you that As a matter of fact, he thought there were crayons in the box, and then he found out that there were candles in the box. You can ask him about Snoopy, and he'll say, oh, no, Snoopy will think that there are crayons in this box. Great. Why will he think that?
Because it's a crayon box.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And that's going to make him think they're crayons. What's really in the box?
Candles.
Right. And then you get the 5-year-olds who are just utterly blasé and think that this is such an obvious thing, it's silly even to ask the question. What that shows is that by the time children are 4 and 5, they have a view of the mind that looks much more like our view of the mind. They understand that things can be tricky and deceptive, that you can change your mind, that things aren't always the way that they seem. And that gives them a very different vision of how the mind works and how people work.
Remember, we're sharing this. Oh, I need that. And then it's my turn.
Children who pass the false belief test now understand that other people can have different beliefs, even mistaken beliefs. Some scientists suggest that this test is further evidence of innate brain circuits specialized for reading other people's minds. They call it a theory of mind mechanism.
So it was not interesting. Okay, so did you get the idea from this video, right? Okay, so every time you put a slide here and you think the audience is going to understand the slide because you understand it, because in your brain everything makes sense, then you are being this 3-year-old kid. So when you put something new here, you have never seen that in your life, and there are things that they are not going to be as obvious as for the audience as they are for you because you have seen it before. So you have to make sure that these things that you put there, they are understood. And if they are not understood, you have to go and quickly explain them. Like, for example, I have seen it many times that somebody put a plot and they never explain what is this plot and what they are in the axis. Like, is it time? Is it space? What is this value? Is it voltage? Is it current? Okay, so that I want to add here something that usually when they explain about presentation, they don't emphasize that much, and I think it's more coming from this magic or psychology that I was doing. And the thing is like, okay, we have now explained everything, and we have our big idea, we know what we want to communicate, we know what is the audience, we know how we're going to send that information, we have everything here like very well designed at home. We have everything prepared. But this is expectation, and in reality, what's going to happen is this. You have everything very well prepared. When you go to the lecture and you start talking, the attention of the people is somewhere else. Especially now with the phones, people are just looking there, or even if they are looking at you, they are thinking in another stuff. So I think it's very important when you are doing a lecture or a presentation, like try to be aware of where the focus of attention of your audience is. Like, for example, now most of your attention is going to be here to the moving object, and you are not going to be looking at me. You are going to be looking at what is moving on the screen. That's why I'm going to stop it. So first of all, when you are doing a lecture or when you are doing a presentation, first be aware of this, like interiorizing yourself, like realizing where the people is looking at, or when you put something here, where they are looking at. When you speak, if they are looking at you, where do you want them to focus the attention to? And I have some like tips that you can do. For example, there is this thing called attention grabber. That is when you are doing a presentation, at the beginning, they tell you that it's a really good idea to start with a question. So when you start with a question, you already have the attention of the big audience. You have a lot of people here, and when you start with a question, they listen to you, they think about you, they think what you are going to be doing, so they start to pay attention to what you want to show. Okay? So that's a really good way to start a presentation, to gather this attention and put it into your presentation. And that's what I was trying to do at the beginning of this lecture. That's what I was trying to do. When I was asking you, what is your favorite superpower, I don't really care. It was just a way of like getting this attention and start to looking into my presentation. Okay, another important thing is to break the pattern. Like I was telling you also, some of you the other day, that our span of attention, or the span of attention of the people, is like 5-10 minutes. So you have something continuously happening, somebody talking, changing a slide, talking. After 5 minutes, you get used to that stimuli, and then you just get lost. So it's a really good idea to break this continuity, to break that, or to make changes into that, so people, they have to focus again, and then you gain this attention that it was lost. And there are many things you can use for that. For example, every time I change the slides, there is a change here, and you are going to be looking at that change happening. Or you can use, as it happened before, you can use silence. You are talking all the time, but you make a silence, then that's going to show people that there is some transition there. You can use this silence to regain the attention, or you can use this silence to break the communication into ideas. Also, if you're doing a lecture, also something you can do is, instead of being all the time teaching on one side, you can go and explain something on the whiteboard. Also, you can make small games or ask questions to the audience. And you can do anything that is coming to your mind to break this continuity. You can make a joke. You can put some funny picture here that is making people to change their state of mind. You can also say some fact sometimes if you think it can be useful. Or you can also use swearing. It's not good to use like swearing all the time because it looks bad, but you can use it to emphasize sometimes. That's my opinion. Another way of keeping this attention, that it can be maybe more difficult, is to create interest into your audience. So you can use that, for example, if you are doing a short presentation or a lecture, you can start this presentation with a question, and then the audience will have this question. You ask them the question, and you tell them that if they follow your presentation, at the end they will understand the answer to this question. Or a way to do that is with the storytelling, but I think that's some people, they have this ability of speaking and telling stories and get the attention of the people into a story. So if you are one of those, you have to use that superpower. And again, you can learn this attention from movies. If you are watching Walking Dead, or you are watching Game of Thrones, and you finish one episode, they always know how to finish the episode in a way that you want to watch another one. They really know how to communicate this and make you to feel this intrigue about what's going to happen, so you want to watch more. So that's what you have to do. If I am talking here and I want to create interest, I have to find a way of making you to want to know what's going to happen. Okay, and finally, I'm close to the end, don't worry. I'm close to the end. So finally, I wanted to say just like a few things, because I have been talking about how to talk, how to do this, how to do that, but I wanted to say some things about yourself, what happens to you when you are presenting, okay? And one of the most common things is that everybody, they have like fear to speak in front of people, and that's something very common that everybody has. And in my personal experience, it was also like this at the beginning. Like the first year I had to teach, every Friday, the previous night, I was sleeping like 5 hours because I was thinking, and I was there like sweating and drinking water all the time. But the only way to like get rid of this thing, of this fear, is just like practice and forcing yourself to get into this, out of this comfort bubble. And also another thing that I think probably have here as well is that in the same way I'm doing all this presentation to put an idea because you cannot read my mind. That's also good, because if now I'm doing here something and I forget a part or I do some mistake, you don't really know, because you don't know what I was going to do. Actually, in this lecture, I was practicing yesterday this lecture, and I actually have forgot a couple of things, but you didn't realize because you didn't see me yesterday, or you didn't know what I was going to do. So you also can use that in your advantage. When you are doing a presentation, if you forget something, or if you don't do it as perfect as you were expecting, it doesn't matter, because the audience, they don't really know. You can just learn and do it better the next time. Another thing is, I have been giving you here some tips, some personal ideas, some ways of communicating, but at the end of the day, you should take them into your personality. I mean, when you are doing something, you don't have to do what I was telling you. You should try to find what fits better with your personality. For example, for me, the body language is very important, and I communicate because I'm from Spain, so I'm used to do that. But if you are a Finnish, I don't want to make any offense, but if you are a Finnish person and you are more comfortable than not moving so much, it's okay. You just have to find another way of take one other of the other tools that you have there and use it to communicate your idea. Because it's very bad if you try to force something that you are not feeling comfortable with. Or you don't have to all the time they tell you, it's really good to smile in presentations, so people smile at you and you are there presenting something. It's even going to be worse. And anyway, in the end, all this, again, is practice, practice, practice. So you have to practice and see how you feel and learn from your mistakes and do mistakes all the time, and that's it. And that's what I'm doing as well. I'm doing this lecture, for example, is the first time I'm doing it, and I can see myself I have been doing some mistakes, or I have seen myself that I would like to do something better. So if I have to do this presentation again, I will correct myself, and I will practice again, and then the next time will be better. Okay, so I finished now just summarizing what I would like you to remember after this. So I have here just 5 points that I would like you to at least start thinking about them when you do this presentation. So first, as I was saying, the most important is the audience. So everything you are going to be doing, it depends on your audience. And the second one, you have learned that after we are 4, we develop this theory of mind. So we are able to understand that people don't think like us. So you have to be all the time thinking, what is your audience going to know? They are not going to know, and what you have to tell them. Third, learn from the movies, all these communication tools or these communication ideas. People working, making movies, they are experts on this. They make a lot of money telling you, they know how to tell you a story and sell that to you, and how to make you feel things, and how to make you to get new ideas using movies. So you have to learn from some professional. Yes, when you are watching, and you are watching all movies, so when you are watching movies, just be aware of this, and you can learn a lot. And then, as I was saying, another important thing, be also aware of where is the attention of your audience, and how can you drive that into where you want them to look. And finally, as I was saying, just practice, think about this, think about what I'm telling you, practice, look at yourself when you are presenting, think about that, and practice, practice, practice. Okay, so we can take a small break. I put the link to the presentation if you want to have a look. And because I'm doing this for this pedagogical course, well, you have any questions? Okay, let's do it quick, so Jasmine can go to sleep. So because I'm doing this for this pedagogical question, I would like you to, if you can give me some feedback about this, I will use it for my report. Okay, let's go because I have 8 minutes recording, so it's going to take me just one slide to quickly explain it. What you should do for the other one, for Wednesday. Okay, so you have to make this. You have these 3 groups, and you should do the presentation. You decide how. And in this lecture, I was explaining you all these different points that we have in a presentation. And what I think is good of this task is that we had fixed a lot of this. This task is fixing many of these variables that we have when we are doing a presentation. Okay, so the idea, for example, you have to communicate this one big idea. That idea is given to you. Okay, each group you have one idea that you have to communicate. The audience is also fixed. You know the audience. Well, you don't know the audience. I tell you what is going to be the audience. So the audience is, imagine, because that was one of the mistakes that we were doing in the previous NABC task. You have to imagine, I was thinking that we can imagine that Yauri Hittinen is our audience, and he's going to be a doctor like Yuka, and you have to explain this new idea to this doctor, okay? So you have to think that this doctor, he has medical knowledge, but maybe he's not going to have so much technical knowledge. So you have to think, you have a doctor in front of you, and you have to explain this idea, how are you going to do that? Then the order of how to send in these ideas is also given. So it's telling you that we have to start with this hook, or this attention grabber, or with this big idea to create interest in our audience. And then we have to explain what is the need, then how you are going to solve that need, then what would be the good things of that need, and then you speak about some competitors. Okay, so we have all these things are fixed, so you have to focus more on how you are going to break this idea into pieces, how are you going to be sending those, and how can you use the communication tools to do it. And the time limit will be also fixed, that is this 10 minutes. Okay, so is there some question about this task that you have to do for Wednesday?
So you need this for each in your group?
Yeah, you do it by group, and you should, I think like Yari Huttinen was saying that, everybody should present something. So everybody has the chance to present. And my idea is that the group will be presenting, and then we all will be watching, and you can give some feedback about your colleagues. And also you can give feedback about yourself. And the way to do that is so the group will be presenting, people watch, and then we will do kind of a round of feedback. And you should say something you like. I will explain this again in Wednesday, but people will say something that they like from the presentation, and something, or from the way of presenting, and something that they can improve. Okay?
So 10 minutes is for the whole presentation, or for each one they should have presented?
For the whole group. The whole group, you have to present this NABC presentation in 10 minutes.
You mean the software group they should have presented minutes, and then the hardware group they should have presented minutes, or the whole group?
We are going to make 3 groups. We have 3 presentations with the NABC format. And then in your group, you decide how you share this one presentation. Okay? So 3 groups, 3 presentations, and then you decide how you present that inside your group. Yes. So you are the hardware, software, yeah. So the software group, so you take what is the idea of what is the big idea. So you are going to make this new way of detecting seizures in the ECG. That's the big idea. So you take that, and you have to present it in this order. You break it into pieces, and you present it into this order. And you have to present that for the audience will be a medical doctor. So when you present that, you should realize that what you are explaining, what the medical doctor knows and what he doesn't know. So you cannot tell the medical doctor, we are going to use non-linear analysis with phase space plots, you know, because a medical doctor, they will not know that. So you should explain your idea, taking into consideration what is your audience. Does it make sense?
So how can we explain approach? Approach is most technical. Shall we explain approach, then it should be technical.
So if it's technical, your approach, you make it technical, it's up to you. If you make it technical, you have to be sure that they are going to understand that technical things. So that's what you have to do. That is the task, is for you to decide and think how you should explain this idea so people who is watching you, in this case a medical doctor, understand. That's the, like, all the rest is given, like all the organization, all the time, everything in the presentation, I tell you. What you have to focus on is how you explain this, and what you have to say, what you don't have to say. So somebody that is a doctor and they don't have the same mind that you have, that they will understand this idea. Yes? Okay, so thanks for coming after Bapu, especially for some of you. Not going to say names. We can go now. You can work on this and let's meet Wednesday. It was 11? Wednesday? Yes? Okay. So Wednesday, 11, in the normal lecture room. Okay, thank you. You can leave your paper. Like,